everyone, it's Chaplain April, and I am here today to kind of apologize for leaving you hanging with that other video where I was talking about the King is coming. That was before Christmas, and I was going to follow it up with another video called The King is Here, after, Jesus is born. We know it's not the exact date, but anyway, that's the day that we celebrate his birth. So I was going to follow that up with that video, and I got like very, very ill. And so now here I am. I'm just going to do a really, really quick explanation of that. And my Christmas tree is no longer up and all of that, so we're just going to have to roll with what we have here. But I got very ill. I got a sinus infection, which is very common out here where I live. There's a lot of seasonal allergies. I'm very, very allergic to, let's see, ragweed, and what's the other one? I can't remember, but anyway, they show photos when those things are really thick in the air here. They'll show photos of the trees that are giving off these spores, and they'll shake the tree and you'll just see like, it looks like powder just coming off. So when that happens here, I have a very, very hard time. My husband has seasonal allergies too, but he's allergic to like different things than I am. So when he's feeling it, I'm not, and when I'm feeling it, he's not. So anyway, I always think, oh, I'm fine, and stop taking my allergy meds, and then if it's the wrong time of year, then it turns into an infection, and that's exactly what happened. So then it gets worse. So I was like hoarse. I mean, I could not even speak. I wanted to do the video, and I couldn't even talk. And then I was like coughing. I couldn't hardly breathe at night. It was terrible. I have to use the CPAP machine. I can't use that if I can't breathe. So then I wasn't sleeping well. It was just, a bad string of events. But my mom also got sick. And, okay, if there's any doctors watching, you're going to be like shaking your head. So this isn't normal, but anyway, isn't normally what I do. But a couple of times, if I can't get medicine real fast, like an antibiotic, and I know that it's a sinus infection because I get them about once a year, I will run to the Mexican pharmacy because they can give you antibiotics without a prescription. Giving away my secrets here. So I did that. Then my mom got sick, and she doesn't drive. She had 2 strokes 5 years ago, and she doesn't drive. So, and she lives like away from everyone. She's like in the center of town. Everyone else is kind of around. So it takes 15-20 minutes to get down there to get her. So she can't just like go to the doctor or go get medicine or whatever unless she takes like an Uber. So she got sick, and she thought she was okay. Come to find out, she got an infection just like I had. And this was on Christmas New Year's Day when everything was closed. She was really, really struggling. So I said, Mom, you know what? I'm just going to bring you the antibiotics that I have, and then I'll get more tomorrow. And so I took those to her. I know you're not supposed to give it wasn't really a prescription, but anyway, it was antibiotics, a form of penicillin. And so I took like 4 of them with me and gave her the rest of the box. And I took those 4, and I thought, oh, I'm fine. It's, it's gone. Well, since I didn't take the whole full 10 days, it wasn't gone. It actually came back with a vengeance. So I thought I was getting better, and then it came back, and I was sick for another like 10 days. And I got even worse, more hoarse and whatever. So I know you're not supposed to give your prescriptions out and things like that, but it was New Year's Day. Everything was closed that day. So that's basically all I could do, was just go help her out. And then I suffered. And then right after I got better from that, my oldest son had a car accident. That's another story. He's okay, but it was you know, it was a lot to deal with. God protected him from being a lot worse than it was. There were some other people involved in it, and so I kind of had to deal with that. His car was totaled, and so, you know, we had to deal with the insurance and all the things surrounding that. And then after that, my husband and I went out to see his family in Washington, D.C. So it's just been like no time since the last time I posted, I guess. In my last video, I was talking about how the king was coming. The king being Jesus Christ. And so, you know, we call him that. So I was looking online, you know, like, how can I explain this to someone that is not a Christian, that doesn't believe? Like, they're gonna be like, what are you talking about, kings? And, you know, okay, I know who Jesus is, but is he really a king? So I wanted to just clarify that a little bit, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Well, let's start off with Isaiah 11 is talking about when Jesus is going to be sent, when the Messiah is going to be sent. And that's a prophecy in the Old Testament that comes true in the New Testament. That is a huge thing. The statistic, you can look it up in, what is that book? The Case for Christ. The statistic is in there about how unlikely it is for even one or two prophecies to come true from the Old Testament, and so many have come true. The odds are just crazy. If you look at the odds of one of these prophecies coming true, the odds are astronomical, and they have come true because it's God, and his word always comes true. His word never returns void. His attributes never change, which we talked about before. So if he says something and he says he's going to do something, it's going to happen. So most of these prophecies in the Old Testament have been fulfilled. There still are some to come. And that's kind of how we know where we are in history right now, because of the prophecies that have not yet been fulfilled. So let's read Isaiah 11, or we'll read like until verse 5. It says, the righteous reign of the branch. It says, verse 1, then a shoot will spring forth from the stem of Jesse. And this is the New American Standard Version. And so he's talking about Jesus is going to come from the lineage of Jesse and then through David. And a branch from his roots will bear fruit, and the Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and strength, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. And he will delight in the fear of the Lord, and he will not judge by what his eyes see, nor make a decision by what his ears hear. But with righteousness he will judge the poor, and decide with fairness for the afflicted of the earth. And he will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. Also righteousness will be the belt about his loins, and faithfulness the belt about his waist. And then verse 10, well, I don't know if we should just read the whole thing. Verse 10 says, then it will come about in that day that the nations will resort to the root of Jesse, who will stand as a signal for the peoples, and his resting place will be glorious. And so he's talking about Jesus there, the Messiah, and all these things that he's going to do for the world and for the people of the world when he comes. And the curious thing is that when Jesus was being persecuted and right before he was crucified, the leaders were calling him the King of the Jews, like Pontius Pilate and the Roman soldiers. They called him King of the Jews, but the Jewish leaders preferred King of Israel. Matthew 27:42 says, So they're mocking him in verse 41. And then verse 42, he saved others. He cannot save himself. He's the King of Israel. Let him now come down from the cross, and we shall believe in him. So they're calling him the King of Israel. Mark 15:32. Let this Christ, the King of Israel, now come down from the cross, so that we may see and believe. Luke 23:3. And Pilate asked him, saying, Are you the King of the Jews? And his answer was, It is as you say. So most of them believe that he was actually going to be a physical king of Israel. Like he was going to physically, grow up and end up being king. And that's probably why Herod wanted him, killed and all of that. But he's talking more spiritually. He is spiritually the King of Israel, the King of, mostly because the Jews are his chosen people is why he used the country Israel. But he's king over all the world and, as far as I'm concerned, the universe and everything. But it was not an earthly kingdom as far as our earthly politics go. He is the king because God created the earth and sent him here, and that makes him the king. But he's talking more about a kingdom in the spiritual realm. So kings are anointed when they become, to become king. They're anointed, like David was anointed. And the word Messiah means anointed one. So he is the Messiah. He's already the anointed one. That is why I wanted to do this little video on the King is here. He was born, he was physically born in Israel. He lived, he walked the earth. I went to Jerusalem and saw a lot of places where he walked and where he took the cross. And then he died there. And that was to redeem mankind. So, he was already the king, but he even gave more of himself because of the sin of the world. He needed a redemption plan, and this was God's plan to redeem mankind, and the only way to accomplish that was to give his life, physical life. So when Jesus came and was born in a physical body, just like the rest of us, but he was fully God and fully human all at the same time. We are fully human and we have a spirit, but we are not fully God. He is part of the Godhead. So that is how he was sinless. And I was going to go into a little bit about, well, what is sin and why did we need to be redeemed? Sin, without really doing a study here in as far as I'm concerned, it's the absence of God. Sin is something that you do outside of the laws of God. It's the absence of God and his presence when you do a certain thing. It's something that goes against his precepts and his commands. The 10 Commandments. So if you were to go against those, that is sin. So because man sinned and had created that gap between him and God, that's why God sent Jesus, his son, to redeem us. So I wanted this to be really quick and just to explain to you the King is here. As far as he is spiritually here, he came here in the physical world, and although he died, he rose again, and he is still here in the spiritual realm. He's seated at the right hand of God the Father, and he's waiting for us, and he's already done everything that he could to redeem us. He gave everything to redeem us. All we have to do is acknowledge what he did, and say, oh wow, you know, Jesus really did walk the earth. He really did give his life, because why would a sinless man die, you know, knowing that he's innocent? Well, the only reason would be to redeem, because he knew that he was going to have to die anyway. And we need to receive that. We receive that into our hearts as, yes, Jesus, you are the King of the universe. You know, I love that song by Natalie Grant, King of the World. I love that song, you know, because we try to do things in our own power. Even as Christians, we forget that we are supposed to switch over from the natural to the spiritual and do things, you know, it's only in his power that we can do anything. And so we forget, we try to do things in our own power, forget that he is the King of the world. And so I hope that helps some of these, people watching that have no idea about Christianity and no idea about God, and you know, what does this all mean? I hope that helps. And I just wanted to show this book. I know this is not a book haul, but I wanted to show Sheila Walsh's book, Praying Women. I love Sheila Walsh. She used to be on the 700 Club years and years ago. I would watch it with my grandmother. I had a really strong relationship with my grandmother, and I'd go to her house when I was in college. None of my other family was around, and my grandmother lived down by the Lawton area, and I would go on the weekends and spend them with her, and we watched the 700 Club, and Sheila was on there, and then she had this, you know, breakdown, and she talks all about that now. And I have always been able to relate to her because she has depression, and a lot of Christians never talked about depression, especially when I was growing up and in college. It was like taboo. And I love that about her, that she talks about it, exposes it, and says, you know, hey, it's okay. And so anyway, she has this new book, and she is now on Life Today with Betty Robinson. What's her husband's name? Anyway, it's a husband and wife team on that show, and she is now like a host on there with their son, and she does like Wednesdays in the Word every week, and I love that. But I love her writings, and I love the way that she speaks. She used to be with Women of Faith, and she was one of the speakers, and she's just phenomenal. So I'm on her book launch team, and the reason I want to show this today is because this book comes out today. This is the launch day for her book. So, you know, if you get a chance to read it, it's great. I was reading it on the plane to and from DC. I think I'm in chapter, what am I in here? I'm in chapter 3, I think. So far it's very, very good. And if you get a chance to read it, you will be very blessed. I actually got another copy today. I think Amazon forgot they already sent me one. Now I have 2, so I might just give that away to someone. But I hope this helps you guys, and you know, continue praying, reading, all those things that we need to do to keep our spirits alive and full. You know, if you think about it, you eat 3 times a day, you know, physical food. Well, how often do you feed your spirit? You know, think if you have to feed your body 3 times a day, how much do you need to feed your spirit? You know, once a week going to church is not going to cut it. You know, you've got to feed your spirit. That's reading the Word, reading books of people that are, you know, devout Christians, listening to podcasts, watching, you know, that type of television program, whatever you need to do, you know, singing worship songs, all of those things feed our spirits. So we really need that. And so that's an example of something that would help me feed my spirit. You know, reading the Word, of course, is the main one. So you guys take care. I don't want to make this any longer, but we will start something new soon, as soon as I can figure out how I can stay on schedule here. So you guys take care. I'll see you in the next video.